also say good evening to the viewers who are just about joining in, and as we roll into the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. And now, for the next 30 minutes, the big focus is going to be the evolution of the virus and the new challenges it brings along. Viewers, for several weeks now, we've had a conversation about the double mutant. First the news came about a UK variant and then a South Africa variant, and how that is transmitting faster, that is infecting people faster, and has become a big problem. So when we discovered that was happening across the world, we up our guard against it. We started tracking those cases. But then we kind of dropped the ball on the double mutant. The double mutant, which is essentially two variants that merged and became this new virus entity, which seemingly spreads faster, infects faster, and perhaps is one of the bigger causes for the large number of cases that we're seeing in second wave. It may not be the only reason. We unlocked and went about our lives as if nothing was wrong and COVID didn't exist. But I want to talk about this today because of the new information that the center has now given us. A lot of this we've touched upon earlier when individual reports came out. It becomes official and more important when you get this information from the center, including a confirmation that there is now a triple mutant which has been detected, especially in West Bengal. A triple mutant, 3 different kinds of variants that then merge together. We don't even really know, I don't know, hopefully the experts will have answers for me of just what that means, and is that a more dangerous strain than what we've seen in our country so far. Understand this, that the virus constantly evolves, and there must be thousands and lakhs of these variants across the world right now. But it is the job of the experts and the scientists and the governments to track this virus, its evolution, to see what we need to be ready for. So tonight, as we understand this, I'm going to ask this question. Did we go too slow with our tracing and our genome sequencing? If this double mutant existed late last year, were we too complacent? Why did we not ramp up our genome sequencing, our tracing, to see just how widespread was it and what was the impact? Could we have prepared ourselves better for what was coming through? Could we have anticipated what was coming and prepared ourselves accordingly? And again, what are we doing about it now? What about the triple mutant? What does it even mean? I have many questions, and 3 experts who are joining me hopefully will have lots of answers for me as well. Dr. N.K. Arora, Executive Director for England, Chairman for the COVID-19 Working Group, the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization. Dr. Virandar Singh Chauhan, Emeritus Professor for International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. And Dr. Rakesh Mishra, Director for the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, CCMB, as it's known as, joining us this evening. Dr. Chauhan, if I could start off with you. We've worked hard to get together this information. We've had many conversations, of course, about genome sequencing, but I think today it's a lot more important to speak about it. Would you agree that we could have stepped it up and been better at this tracing, and maybe that would have helped us prepare better?
So the answer will be mixed answer. One is, all of us should realize the viruses, and especially the kind we are dealing with, have inherent capability and quality to mutate. They mutate all the time, and that regardless whether you sequence them or you don't sequence them. And if you start sequencing them, which is called surveillance of the virus spread, then you are wiser in the sense you know that the mutants, and this happens, for example, very quickly. When the first big spike in infection rate went up in England, South England, or in Brazil, and it's almost same time in South Africa. So they were very quickly sequencing, and they figured out that mutants are taking over. And after that, science takes over, and science finds out the question whether the mutants are more spreading or they have ability to evade immune responses. And these things take time, both in the lab or in the field. So answered that if we had better surveillance, would we have been better prepared? I would say only this, that even if mutants were not there, of course mutants are there, even if mutants are there, we had no reason to drop our guard. We've been saying, the scientists have been saying that the second waves are coming all over the world, with or without mutants. And of course, if I specifically talk about mutants, the Wuhan virus, very earlier on, January last year, had seen a mutation. And these positions, you'll see 614, 484, 452. Just for the viewer to make it non-technical, these numbers are just the number of amino acids on the spike protein, which is a very large protein. It's about 1260 residual law, huge protein as proteins go. The mutants that you and I and public is talking about, is there a portion of spike protein, as I said, it's a very large protein, but there's a portion of this protein which is called the receptor binding domain. Call it a business end of the spike protein. If mutations start taking places and stabilize in the receptor binding domain, which you see right now, double mutant and two mutations in the receptor binding domain, which means the virus has selected lots, how, as you said, lakhs of mutation take place, but it has selected the ones which are beneficial to this. So we know by now that the mutants bind to the receptor faster, more effectively, therefore can spread and do spread faster. They can be more harmful. Whether they can evade immune responses created by the original virus or by the vaccine is under investigation. I said it yesterday, Rakesh also mentioned that. As of now, lab experience it will take some more time, but on the field we find the vaccination or naturally acquired immunity still is good enough to ward off this virus, mutant virus, as you said, deadly mutant virus, to ward off these mutants easily. So therefore, what we are saying, and everybody is saying, that go and get vaccinated. So vaccination is still outside the masking, outside tracing, outside social behavior, outside not going out, still is one of the best options that we have. So the countries that have vaccinated larger proportion of their population are sitting rather prettily compared to the ones which haven't. For example, Israel, UK, USA, Chile, Dubai. These places vaccination has happened in a very large scale, and they're beginning to open. But as I speak with you, Kenya, the Eastern African countries are beginning to face what we are facing. Canada, Germany, France, beginning to come out from third wave. I think what we are looking at is second wave is very difficult to duck now. So what we have to go back to the basics, immediately go back to what we were trying to do last March as much as we can, with the economy still open. Cut the infection rates as much as we can. You can't duck the tsunami. Tsunami has to be borne with, but it can be reduced. So you ask your question, what should we do now? I think we should go back to the basics, and in parallel, and which I think we are hearing now from the government, that vaccinate as soon as possible, as much as you can. And that becomes another question: how many vaccinations can you do? What percentage of population can you do? How many do you need to
That is a
vaccinate
whole
before you
different
get out?
question, Dr. Chauhan. Because, like you said, as we speak, the pace of the vaccination continues to slow down in most of the states, and especially the worst hit states. Day after day, in cities like Mumbai, half the vaccination centers are shut. I don't even know what's going to happen post 1st of May, because the states are yet to figure out what and how much of it are they going to get from Covishield. Covaxin hasn't even announced its prices. So while hopefully in the long run, post-June vaccination picks up pace, I want to talk about what we knew and whether we could have used that information better, because all that I remember is repeatedly in those weekly conversations that we were having with the government telling us that we don't know enough about the double mutant, that there isn't much prevalence about the double mutant, or that Delhi and Maharashtra have just other problems that they're not able to manage, and it has nothing to do with any variant or mutant. But we do now know that 50% of the cases in Maharashtra that were tested turned out to be the double mutant, and we've known this now for a while. It's only come out in the public domain by the central government now. We do know that it was first detected in October 2020 through genome sequencing. We do know, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the genome sequencing process itself slowed down between November to January. I don't know why, because we thought the cases were going down, or because there were lack of funds, or a clear plan and a directive in place, general disinterest because COVID seemed to be going away. Now, my question to you scientists and experts is, were there these red flags that maybe at a administrative level were not responded to? That's the question, Dr. Arora, I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Tanvi. Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to be with Professor Chauhan and Professor Rakesh Mishra. And in fact, with Rakesh, we were there in the morning and yesterday also. And this is an issue. So you are raising, and I think Dr. Chauhan told us very clearly, right from January 2020, we have been seeing the mutants with this particular virus. By nature, this virus will keep on mutating because it also wants to survive, and they keep on mutating in a manner so that they may make the individual sick, but also in the process keep transmitting. And we know about UK, we know about South Africa and Brazil, as Dr. Chauhan has told us. The key issue you are asking is that so-called double mutant. Rather than double mutant, I would say Indian mutant B1617. And because double mutant and triple mutant looks frightening. And I think probably Rakesh would be able to shed more light on that. But these are variants, Indian variants, two variants, which first one was discovered somewhere in November, December last year, and the other one more recently. And but overall, what we know from the epidemiology of the disease, that the fueling or the ferociousness of the current wave, it cannot be totally explained to the mutants. There are, I think last time also when I was there, that the waves form is a basic viral behavior. There is a crescendo, which we had seen in September. Then there is a nadir, which we saw in first week of February. And again, now it is moving further. So mutants are only partially part of the this episode or this outbreak can be explained to the mutants, and that also in the localized. We know the so-called double mutant is mostly in the Maharashtra and surrounding area. Bengal, you said about triple mutant. Delhi and Punjab and other northern India, it is UK variants, which are in 40-50% of the individuals who are being currently analyzed, and genomic sequence has been done. But there are other issues. I think lowering down the guard in terms of social gatherings, mixing, religious, political meetings, plus in general, the people having weekend get-togethers and all those, and not using or not behaving in a corona-appropriate manner. I think everything has to be seen together, and it cannot be just mutants. Even if we had known mutants, or the whole question you have clearly asked is, what can do if mutants are there? Can we do something? The only thing which is of concern when mutants are seen is whether my current corona appropriate behavior is appropriate, how strictly it is managed. The second issue is how effective is my vaccine? And I think only last few days the information has come that the current vaccines are reasonably good as far as both the Indian variants are concerned. Rakesh will tell us more about that. But the most important thing is, in the absence of anything else, it is the vaccine. And I must say that we started with 3,000 immunization centers on 16th January. By 1st April, it was about 45,000, with 5,000 in private sector, 40,000 in public sector. These days, we are around 70,000 immunization centers. And priority has been kept for more than 45 because these are the people. And today, whatever we are seeing on visual media as well as other media, that people who are requiring hospitalization and who are dying are mostly in age group above 45. Very few unfortunate people are below the age of 45. So focused, because we know that a vaccine is limited amount, it is not unlimited, and therefore very good immunization. But we see during, even after 1st April, only 1 or 2 days it has crossed 4 million.
Dr.
But after that,
Arora, what you're saying is right.
So we need to see that immunization.
No, all of what you are saying and Dr. Chauhan is saying is correct. You know, I completely agree with both of you when you say that irrespective of whether this is there or not, we should not have let our guard down. But we did let our guard down because there was this general perception, of course, not among scientists, but a general perception that it's gone. From the government, from leaders, from amongst people, everybody just went around. We traveled, we went from one place to the other. We don't know where all we carried that mutant, from Maharashtra to Gujarat and maybe even Karnataka, you know, from Punjab maybe to Delhi or Delhi to Punjab, whichever way the UK variant traveled and became in larger numbers. That's exactly my point, that had we known about it, had we been able to track it on a larger scale, test it, genome sequence it at the right time and realized what it was and where it was, we could have brought in the containment steps. We could have said that, okay, this is what is there in Maharashtra. We need to check a little bit more about it. And then, until then, let people not maybe travel outside. Until then, don't stop the efforts to build your health infrastructure. Until then, don't let anybody let their guard down. Penalize the ones who are doing so. Perhaps that's my question here, Dr. Rakesh Mishra. Of course, the virus evolves, it mutates, there's double I mean, and however, whatever we want to call it by the technical term, which honestly scares me. It's like the IP address that we use, and I can never remember it. So I prefer to use double mutant and triple mutant. But had we stepped up on it last year, in summers, or even in October and November, could we not have changed certain of our policies and warned people about it?
Okay. Thank you. So I just want to put some things in perspective. I think we are on one page that virus is around, and this virus is very infectious, irrespective of which variant, and therefore we cannot let our guard down. And I think from all corners this was being told. Even government have been telling, but on this in practice we have seen that this was totally ignored, and we did everything that is liked by virus to spread. So, but when the infection is low, it is very difficult to convince people. I think we needed more, maybe communication, better ways of doing this, and maybe we have learned with the hard way this thing. I only hope that we'll not have to pay even worse price for that. But I want to actually explain you a little bit about the variants that we are talking. We are saying this variant was isolated first sampled in 5th October, and then we in November, December, and all that. Those times these were not really recognized variant, or they didn't have name. The name of 6.1.6 B.1.617 came only a few weeks back. When this became more prominent, then Research gave it name. Before we had started calling it double mutant, maybe we should have called something else to it. The reason it was not considered a variant of interest or variant of concern, because it was not there in significant number that you consider is concern. When we had analyzed the first 6,000 sequences that we had done in India, there were 7,500, more than 7,500 variants. You're not going to chase and worry about it because most of them disappear on their own. They don't have any significance. Only those who spread more are the variants of concern, and double mutant, so-called, is something of that. And by the way, triple mutant, the whole press had got it wrong. It is not in West Bengal. It is in Maharashtra, and it is a sublineage of double mutant. What we have in Bengal is actually the double mutant, and also another version, a distinct variant, which is B.1.618, not 7. And these two together make some 50-60% of the cases in Bengal, but that I think will get corrected. It doesn't matter. Uh, so the variants and their significance and their repercussions, all those things comes much later when they become significant in number, and then we start to worry about it. So I don't think in context of variant we have to do anything. England did so much of genome sequencing, the best in the world, but UK variant did come there and did force them to do lockdown, and it is still there, but the lockdown is gone because behavior has changed. So I think contribution of human behavior is significantly greater than actually what infection we put on variant. Variants are very important for surveillance, as Dr. Arora and Professor Chauhan brought out very nicely, so that we can take appropriate steps. For example, we want to know whether these variants are associated with higher mortality, more infectivity. More infectivity probably is because they are increasing their footprint, but will they sustain, will they ignore vaccine, or vaccines are still effective? And those are the questions we have to ask the moment we find something which is spreading faster. And I also add additional importance to the variant because these are now a more adapted, more evolved, more faster spreading viruses, even if they are not causing any harm to us now. They are a good vehicle to develop another variant on this because they will be spreading more, and they will be the platform for yet another variant to come, which may be a problem for the vaccine or problem for more symptoms to us. And therefore, we should stop them as soon as we can by social distancing, by COVID appropriate behavior, and with the vaccine because the vaccines are effective. We know now for sure that both the vaccines work against the double mutant and practically all the mutants that are known now. So let us de-link the variant and the measures that we need to take because same COVID appropriate behavior is fully fit for no matter which variant we are talking about. So we should not confuse people that we have to now find new ways of fighting this virus because new variant has come. That is such a detail that actually even if public doesn't know it, sometime I feel better because then we stick to what we need to do effectively and get to back to the normal way of life. And variants are a matter of scientific and clinical issues which are taken care. We could have done more sequencing for any scientist. More sequencing, more information always is very interesting. But like everything else, there are limited resources. There are
So let me ask you this before I go back to Dr. Chauhan. Dr. Rakesh Mishra, let me ask you this, and I want to actually ask all three of this question one by one. Would you want now this to be stepped up, the process, you know, the number of labs that we have, the capacity that they have to test these many samples that you are, would you say it is perhaps required right now to step it, maybe to even find out the extent of this triple mutant?
Yes, yes. So more sequencing should be done. We are now doing maybe around 10, 15,000 or maybe 20,000 per month. We have reached that level. We should be maybe around 40, 50,000. That will be reasonable number to keep track of most of these things, whether it's a more dangerous. We know triple mutant is generally only in Maharashtra, 10% of the cases. It's not seen in any noticeable number anywhere else. But the sequencing, one of the more important capacity we have enough in sequencing, 50,000 we can sequence a month. National capacity actually much more than that, and more labs can involve even better. Problem, but this is that we should get samples from all part of all geographical locations of the country because viruses don't mutate only in Delhi and Bombay. They will mutate even in small corners of Telangana or UP. So we should have a system where 5% of the new cases from all the places are collected and brought to the sequencing center. And that's a big task to ask for a system which is so much stressed out and worrying about oxygen and ambulance at the moment. We are going through very tough time. So I don't think we should get too much worried. The amount of sequencing we are doing, if we do sampling in a proper way, we will get other most crucial information. Please remember, if we are saying double mutant is a new variant because of our sequencing effort only, it is not somebody else has sequenced and identified this. And we have found it, as you yourself are saying, that early next year. So it is not that we have missed out something very large by slowing down sequencing or not sequencing enough. We are lucky that these viruses are
Okay.
not dangerous enough.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Professor Chauhan, you wanted to make a point earlier?
I just want to make science little bit more palatable to the viewer. Virus, wherever there is infection, a large amount of infection, that means that much virus has chance to replicate itself. Immaterial with the location. So it's no surprise that you found something in South Africa. That doesn't mean anything about South African mutant or Brazilian. If you do it in Peru or do it in Portugal or do it in California, you're going to find very similar mutant. What I want to make slightly less scientific, that the mutations, the double mutant or triple mutant actually is a misnomer, as Rakesh said last time. These are two key mutants that are, what is a mutant? It's a change in amino acid sequence of a very large protein. If that change allows virus to be fitter, to be more infective than the previous version, well, in this case Wuhan virus, then virus is going to select that. But even virus has limitation in how much mutation can it make, where it has to drive a business. And business for virus in this case would be how to enter the cell, human cell, host cell more effectively. So it's not as if tomorrow virus is going to make tetra, penta, hexa, or 6 or 7 mutation. And so if you see all the mutation, whether it's UK or Brazilian or South African or now Indian, they are pretty much in the same positions. So virus also has quite limitation. Many mutations that have happened will disappear by itself. Has virus come to a peak of mutation which are more effective or not? We don't know. That's why surveillance is very important. That's why gearing up your sequencing facility, which I think that currently there are 10 labs. There's a consortium and they have tremendous ability to sequence. So India would have, I don't know the number, Rakesh would know or Narendra would know. I would say there must be close to 10,000 sequence already done, and rapidly more sequences can happen. So I want to dissociate, and I want to be very clear. The places where sequencing hasn't been done, for example, countries which have not facility, you're going to find the mutants. Virus doesn't care whether it is in Delhi or Maharashtra or Bengal or Chennai or Africa or Kenya or wherever. So what scientifically we have to be very, very careful, and to Baiman, that's where our focus should be. Will these mutants have the ability to escape our immune responses created either by natural infection or by vaccination? As I speak with you, there's evidence that broad immune responses that we create from natural infection or through vaccination is still very effective. But science will tell you that there could be these variants which will compromise a little bit in their ability to neutralize these viruses. But that's why I call it such a race which virus and humans are really involved in. We find vaccines, we will find new vaccines, virus will find more mutation. Eventually, humanity will come at the top. I have no doubt in my mind. But the second waves all over the world have to be gone through.
Yes, but at what cost? And what do we go through? At what cost and what do we go through? And the thousands and thousands of families who are going through that pain and struggle right now, I think, it would just be better if we had a lot more answers and timely answers at that. The virus evolves, it has many, many versions. I completely agree with all of you, and you're the best minds. But at some point, the information that you are all mining has to help us also prepare better. Even if it is to give the reminder to people through the month of January and February and March and April to mask up, to maintain social distance, then even for that purpose. And I hope that this actually becomes a lesson for the governments who repeatedly tell us, oh, this just happened. We were caught unawares. There was no projection. It is unprecedented. Nobody knew this would happen. Now that, there are hospitals and doctors also telling us this. Perhaps we could have known if we had been more forthcoming in information sharing and tracking and tracing, at least to keep this in the minds of people that, look, the virus is very much here. It is evolving, it is changing forms, and we still need to battle it at every possible level. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have all three of you joining me on this conversation, but I'm completely out of time, so I will have to thank you at this point.